Hi guys, my name is Denise. I'm a manifestation coach. Welcome to my channel. If you would like one-on-one coaching, there's a link in the description below that will take you to all my services, which goes beyond just one-on-one coaching, so feel free to check that out. Um, if you are new to the channel, welcome, and please feel free to check out my other videos and subscribe to the channel. Today, we're going to talk about I'm going to explain as precisely as I can with as many examples as I can think of for you guys to really understand what it means to imagine your desire fulfilled, to get into the state, to practice the conscious, deliberate effort of creating within yourself fulfillment of your desire. And this came from conversations with clients. Obviously, that's one of the biggest struggles is like people, when you're in your 3D reality and it's undesirable, people find it very difficult to understand what exactly to do or how to ignore the 3D and put their attention on what they want. And so I'm just going to talk about that a little bit and use some examples and maybe an analogy or two that I think will be helpful. And so I want to start by just reminding you that one of the foundation of all of this and something that can help you greatly along this journey is to continue to remind yourself that your 3D reality is not a real, tangible, solid thing that's happening to you that you're in the midst of. It is actually a revealing of your inner dialogue. It's a revealing of your inner assumptions, thoughts, beliefs. It's the revealing of your state of consciousness. It's the revealing of your self-concept. It is showing you where you reside in consciousness, basically. So it's showing you what you believe to be true for yourself, what you believe to be true about the world, how you believe you fit into this world, what you believe you're worthy of having, and all of that. And so what you believe is possible for you. And so with that, when we are in a reality, say we're in a reality where we're struggling with finances or we're struggling with relationships and we've been pushing that out and observing it and then reinforcing the belief and assumption that it originally pushed it out. And then we keep doing that feedback loop and we keep creating that reality. When we start to shift, it can be real. When we want to shift, it can be really confusing as to what exactly to do because we can be so wrapped up in that 3D and all of our attention, we've been so used to experiencing something undesirable and we can't help but look at it and we can't help but complain about it and notice it and feel uncomfortable with it. And I understand that, and I obviously went through that as well, and there's still times in my life where I get wrapped up and I react, and it's just part of what I am or who I am or what I'm doing. Now, when I do react now, it's much less intense. I'm much less dramatic about it. And it doesn't last as long. And I really quickly now am able to just kind of brush it off. Almost even when it's happening while I'm reacting, it still is kind of like whatever. Like it's not this devastating, I can't believe this is a happening thing, or oh my God, why me? Or why are we still here? Or why am I still experiencing this? It's more just like, oh, this is fucking annoying, like whatever, okay. Right. And then it's much easier after that to get into like recreating it, revising it, reimagining it, looking forward to a different outcome, starting to think feelingly of what I would prefer to happen. But that came with years of training myself to do this and years of trying to be more and more conscious and aware of what I'm actually thinking and where I'm letting my mind marinate, where I'm letting my mind go. And a big part of that is understanding that when you have negative thoughts, you're not identified by those thoughts. You identify yourself with them, but you don't have to worry about just having negative thoughts. You don't even have to worry about having or experiencing a negative experience because even that is temporary. Once it's manifested and you're in it, that's it. It's gone now. It has manifested, you've experienced it, it's essentially over and irrelevant to what you create next. And I think that's a big part of this is where we feel like because it's been such a long story or we've experienced so much of it, or yeah, we're so used to it that we are going to continue to perpetuate it for so long. And especially when we're told not to react and ignore your 3D and don't do this and don't do that. And yeah, all of that is great advice and it's all true. That's the main goal. well, it's not the main goal, but it's part of the main goal, right? Like that's when you are living from the end, you will naturally be reacting less to your reality. You will hold less value on your 3D reality when you learn to really value the 4D, your imagination. And that's what it is. It's not that those things are necessary to do. It's that those behaviors are a byproduct or a result of you living from the end, of you embracing that you're the operant power, of you knowing that you have control of your imagination. You get to decide where you direct your thoughts and your attention and your awareness. And as a result, it will be reflected back to you. So, as I was saying, part of like one of the most important parts of this is to continue to reiterate and reinforce and look at your 3D as a reflection, right? Reflect on the reflection as being a reflection. In other words, take some time to look at what you're experiencing and what you have experienced over your life and start reassigning the meaning, looking at it differently. You're shifting the lens with which you're looking at it. So right now, after this video or whenever you have time, get quiet, have some time with yourself, and reflect on the events that have taken place in your life that seemed undesirable. And instead of looking at them as something that has happened to you and that has been this terrible experience or whatever, start looking at it as just a reflection of assumptions, a reflection of a state of consciousness, a reflection of where you were residing energetically, like where you were vibrating, however you want to word it, it doesn't matter. But take a few minutes to just acknowledge, okay, all these terrible or shitty or undesirable things that have happened, they haven't been things that have happened to me. They've been things that I have achieved the state within, and then they reflected back. I was dominantly in the assumption of it manifesting, or the experience, or the state of consciousness, or the feeling of it, and it manifested. And really just kind of disassembling what your reality has been up to this point, right? Like that's what you want to do. You want to disassemble it. It's not a thing that's been happening to you that you've just been stuck in, powerless as a victim. It is quite literally all of your internal workings, your state of consciousness just being outpictured and pushed out, and then you're perceiving it through your five senses, right? And I've used this analogy before. It's like you are with your thoughts, assumptions, beliefs, wherever you're putting your awareness, your attention, your consciousness, however you want to word it, where you're putting that internally, in imagination, in private, in silent, where no one can see, wherever you're putting that is what seeds you're planting for your garden, right? That's it. Those are the seeds you're planting. And that shit's gonna sprout up unless you become aware of what you've planted, rip it out, and plant something else instead, right? And so that's what your 3D is. It's that garden that you've planted through your thoughts. And now the intention was set, the action took place, it became real when you planted it or imagined it, and then it sprouts up, and now that's the 3D reality. Now you can look at the garden, you can observe the garden, you can touch the leaves, you can smell it, you can feel the petals. It's a sensory experience of what you previously created. And that's what your reality is. It's just a sensory experience of what you previously created. So if you're feeling like you're struggling with your 3D, and I'm going to talk about some examples that I've had in my life that clients have had, right? We're manifesting a specific person's not acting the way we want them to act. They keep doing these things we don't like. They're making us feel certain ways. We want to talk to them about it. We want to set boundaries with them. We want to tell them how we feel. We want to tell them what we want. We want to break up with them so that creates them to change. We want to do all these things in the 3D. We want to do all these things to the garden when in actuality, it comes from underneath. You got to rip out the seed. You got to rip it out at the root. You got to replant something new. And so how do you actually do that? What do you actually do? Now, I'm going to start by saying if you're ever in a situation where you're being abused, walk away. Never tolerate that. Do whatever you need to do. Set as many boundaries as you need to set. Block, whatever. Stop answering your door. If it really is abusive, you call help when you need it. That's why we pay taxes. We have that available to us. Like don't ever tolerate any type of abuse, any type of abuse. That being said, if you're still thinking, I manifested this person, they're my person, I know I want them, I know this can be, changed and whatever, that's fine. But keep your distance until you change yourself internally. Keep your distance until you become the version of you that is now the recipient of unconditional love instead of the recipient of abuse or toxic behaviors, right? You're the recipient of respect, value, love, all of that stuff. Unconditional love is a great way to word it. It's very general and it kind of covers everything. If you're loved unconditionally by that person, you're all good, right? So that's where you want, that's something I want to say first off is like never tolerate, always ignore that person and walk away from that person and put as much distance as you can in between that person. That being said, what that also looks like, it doesn't look like arguing with that person, going back and forth, explaining why, right? That's when we're getting caught up in 3D. And this is relevant to whether it's in a situation where you feel like you're being abused or a situation. And when I say being abused, like all abuse is abuse. Yeah, that's it. I'm not even going to get into that actually. Like, yeah, I've said what I said. Walk away, distance yourself. Don't have anything to do with that person. If you still want to manifest that person, this is where you start, right? This is what you work on. So not arguing, not going back and forth, not explaining why and all this, because that's just putting more attention on the undesired version. It's thinking first off that like you need to do something out here to elicit change, which you won't. And sometimes you will elicit temporary change when you do that, right? Especially like this is a big one that I see a lot, and I definitely have done it or at least thought about doing it in the past, where it's like you're not really getting what you want. Maybe you're not being abused, but you're not getting what you want. Things aren't showing up the way you want them to show up, and you think, oh, I'm going to tell them that I'm looking elsewhere, or I'm going to end this with them, even though you're like, it hasn't manifested into a committed relationship yet, but I'm still going to break it off, or I'm going to walk away, or I'm going to tell them this. None of that has to take place in 3D. And if you do that in 3D, you might be doing it because you think this is going to make them change. This is how they're going to shift. And all of that can be well and good, but again, that's very surface level of, it's not law of assumption. It's 3D reactionary, I'm a victim behavior. This is going to make them change. They don't need to change. You do. It's not them you're trying to change. It's you're trying to change. So even if you have this assumption that, behaving this way or giving them this ultimatum or telling them this thing will make them change, it's only going to be temporary. You might see some movement, you might see some change, but if you don't actually change, they're going to start doing the same old shit. Like, it's just going to happen. I promise, I guarantee it every time without fail. That's what happens because it's not them you're trying to change. It's not them that needs to change. They're a reflection of you, of your thoughts, assumptions, and beliefs, of your state of consciousness, of your self-concept. So don't engage in the 3D at all. If someone is showing up in a way that you don't want, ignore them. Ignore them. Ignore them. Stop telling them how you feel. Stop telling them what you want or what you need. Stop arguing with them. Stop engaging with them completely in the 3D. If they're not showing up how you want, ignore them until they do. Everyone is you pushed out. You have nothing, you are always in control of this. So you ignore them in 3D, and instead this boundary that you want to create in the 3D, right? This idea of breaking it off or doing this, break it off in imagination. And what that means is not imagining you have the breakup talk, but imagine yourself removing your attention from this whole undesired thing, which includes breaking up with somebody, because nobody ever wants to break up with somebody, especially somebody you're manifesting. That's not your ultimate desire. Your desire is to be in a harmonious relationship, either with them or somebody else. You might be attached to it being them. You also might be open to it being someone new. No wrong way to do it. Doesn't really matter. They're both great and perfect. You can have whatever you want. There are no rules. However, you never have to do anything in 3D. And anything you do in 3D is driven by what you do in imagination. So you also can't change anything in 3D until it's changed in imagination. So if somebody is behaving in a way you don't like, take your attention off of them entirely. Take your physical attention off of them, and most importantly, take your mental attention off of them. Take it off. Literally remove it from them. Stop complaining about them. Stop complaining to them. Stop crying to them. Stop begging from them. Stop demanding from them. Stop arguing with them. Stop engaging completely. Totally ignore it. Left on red, silent, whatever you have to do. And then use your effort, use your discipline, use your mind, use your imagination, use your consciousness, get it all clear or get it all focused on what you actually want to experience. And whether or not you're visualizing or imagining it coming from this person is completely irrelevant. It actually doesn't matter. It's just about you learning to feed yourself in imagination what you want to be reflected back to you in your 3D. Okay? So, and this is, a lot of people struggle with this, and I get it, but think of it this way. When you think about something that's very expected in your day-to-day, when you're hungry, you're thinking about food, or if you need to go somewhere, if you own a car and you're thinking about hopping in your car and going to the store, right? You allow yourself in imagination to fulfill that desire, which means you already assume naturally, wholeheartedly, completely, that you're essentially good enough for that to happen and that it will happen and it will take place. And so what does that mean when we break that down? What does it mean to believe you're good enough for something to happen? Or what does it look like to feel that way? What it looks like is you, in imagination, assuming the wish fulfilled, which doesn't look like, let's say the example for food, right? I'm hungry. Okay, I'm hungry, and I already, without even having to put any more effort, know I will be eating. Whether it's going to be right now or a little bit later based on what I'm doing, I will be eating. Satisfied, fulfilled, complete. Thank you. Awesome. What it doesn't look like is I'm hungry. What if somebody's eaten all my food? What if my food runs away from me? What if my food isn't interested in me? What if my food doesn't want me? What if my food makes me sick? What if there's no more food left? What if the restaurant ran out of food? What if, right? Like, it doesn't look like that. And so when you believe you're good enough for something, you don't take any further steps in its manifestation. You just have the desire and you automatically are like, cool, that's going to be fulfilled. And it's not even a conscious thought usually, but it's just, that's the underlying feeling. That's the vibration. That's the energy. That's the assumption and or intention. There's so many different words to explain it, but that's where your state of consciousness is. I'm hungry, I will be fed. Fulfilled. It's all good. So when you're thinking about your specific person, it's that same practice, but you're going to have to practice it because you're so used to going, but what if they don't want me? And what if they don't change? And what if they're like this? And what if there's someone else? And what if? So you're learning to not do that anymore. And you're learning to fulfill in imagination your desire. Give yourself the permission to assume your desire is fulfilled in your mind. That's what you're learning to do. So when that desire comes up and you start to have those thoughts, what about this and what about that? Okay, that's not necessarily true. Those are just thoughts I'm thinking. Those are options. I can manifest that if I want, but I'm going to focus over here because I don't want to. And then you start thinking the opposite. What if they do really love me? What if they've just been scared this whole time? What if it's all just been a projection of my thoughts and assumptions and beliefs and I've been pushing them away and there is no other explanation because there never is and there doesn't need to be one. But I get sometimes we want to make up one and that's fine. Whatever makes you feel better. But just keep knowing that underneath it all, it just comes down to you. It just comes down to what you believe. And so, right, like you want to, in imagination, give yourself permission to have your desire fulfilled. That's how you express that you're worthy. That's what that actually means, right? Because you can say, I'm worthy, I'm worthy, I'm worthy, I'm worthy, I'm worthy. But if you're affirming that you're worthy of your desire 10,000 times a day or however many times a day, But then every time you think of your desire, you interrupt it with all these bullshit things that might go wrong or why it's not working or why it isn't happening. You're not exemplifying worthiness. And I don't mean bullshit like, I mean bullshit like it's not actually true. And stop being mean to yourself and stop telling yourself these things. Stop letting your mind wander down this road of you being hurt, you being disappointed, you being a victim, you not getting what you want, right? Like, I get it. It would be a lot easier if 3D would just let us think that way. But that's the whole point and the whole purpose. Your 3D is a reflection of your state of consciousness. So it cannot change until you change your state of consciousness. Okay? And, it's kind of like, I've used this analogy before too, but it's kind of like when you start this process, it may not be easy for you and it may not be familiar. Now, that doesn't have to be true. It can be very easy and it can also seem very familiar. Sometimes I've noticed and have experienced that with deep-seated beliefs that I'm reprogramming. Thank you, Jasper. I must be getting a package. It's my favorite time of the day. Not really, but I do love having stuff delivered to my door on a regular basis. It's so amazing, this world we live in. Okay, anyway, it may seem very challenging to reprogram or just get yourself out of this old way of thinking where you're so used to thinking worst case scenario. You're so programmed to think about all the lists of all the reasons why it hasn't happened, why it won't happen, what you're seeing right now and how much it sucks. And I get it, but you are the only controller of your mind. There's nothing else outside of you that's dictating or controlling what you think. And I'm actually working on this with my 8-year-old right now at bedtime because he's getting scared and he's having these thoughts and he doesn't want me to die and just all of these thoughts that are flooding his little mind. And I keep teaching him and explaining to him how to redirect. And it's just like when you get a pet, a dog, you have a new dog. I use that because I got one a couple of years ago for the first time in my life. And I was trying to walk this dog and he did not want to do what I wanted him to do. He was pulling and pulling and pulling and like, what? And I'm just like, oh my God. And forget bringing a cup of coffee, even with a lid, on a walk with my dog because he's just like, he's also strong. He's like a 60-pound dog. But anyway, now I'm just going off. But it's your mind is like that, right? Your mind is like this wild animal that's been living or being this certain way, just running off on these tangents, pulling on the leash, going wild, thinking all these things for so long that you're going to have to keep redirecting it. You're going to have to keep, yanking it back in, reeling it back in. And it might keep pulling and it might keep going off, but just please persist. Please don't give up on yourself. Please keep practicing because eventually it will submit. Eventually it will submit. And, my practice in the beginning was very intense and I had a lot of anxiety. I was very anxious. It was an all-consuming process for me when I first got serious about mental diet specifically and manifesting change in my relationship at that time. That's what I was focused on. And, a relationship, bringing it in. I had the person, turning it into a relationship. But you don't have to do it that way. But I did. I was scripting a lot. I was like writing almost every time I would feel anxious or uncomfortable, even when I had a jobby job before I was doing this, which this is, 6 years ago or something. I would keep a notebook at my desk under my work or next to my work so that I could just write down like affirmations or just a story or anything. I was listening to things at night. I was writing in the morning, writing in the evening. I wasn't doing revision yet. I wasn't doing SATs yet because I didn't think I could, but I was very much like affirming all the time, listening to things all the time, and writing or scripting all the time, very frequently. And I do know now that that was part of my process and that was helpful for me at the time, or at least I believed it was helpful for me. And so it manifested as helpful for me. But you don't have to do it that way. And in fact, what I would suggest is instead of all consuming, practice a little bit of all of the techniques, but frequently. not obsessively, frequently, right? Every few hours, you maybe journal a little bit or script or write or whatever you want to call it. Every hour or so, and there doesn't even have to be a time on it, you're saying a few affirmations. You're questioning yourself. What would it be like when? How will it feel when I have? How will it feel to be? What is it like to have? You're doing that, right? Just periodically throughout your day. At night before bed, maybe you do some revision. At night before bed or in the morning, maybe you do some visualization. Like, maybe a little bit you're listening to something, whether it's right before you fall asleep or while you're sleeping, or maybe it's in the background while you're working throughout your day, when you're exercising, right? But it doesn't have to be an obsessive, like 100% all the time. And I have found that with a lot of people, that can just make it worse, and that can create anxiety, and that can create more upheaval and frustration with, I'm doing so much, why isn't it changing? I'm doing so much, why isn't it changing? And so it's really about that frequently and consistently. Now, consistently doesn't mean constantly. It just means consistently, right? So like if we're thinking about going to the gym, we don't go to the gym and stay there constantly. We don't go for 6 or 8 hours at a time. Maybe some people do. I don't know. But if you're just going to the gym to create long-term results with your body and your physical health, you're probably going to go periodically and consistently. And whatever that looks like for you. Every other day, 3 days a week, 4 days a week, twice a week, whatever, for however many hours at a time, whether it's 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, maybe you're doing a sauna in between, whatever, but you're doing it week over week over week. You keep doing it, right? And you're not there all the time. You're not thinking about it constantly. You're not being crazy about it. You're just doing it. It's just like anything else, like eating, all of those things. We just do them, but we don't need to do them constantly. We don't have to be crazy about it, right? So same thing. And I really do suggest practicing a little bit of everything. I avoided revision for a long time. I'll get into that in another video because there are reasons why people avoid it. I mean, okay, I'll just talk about it. Usually we want to avoid revision because we are holding on to being a victim. There, I said it. Part of us still wants to be a victim. We don't want to let them off the hook. We don't want to think of that terrible thing differently because they did us wrong and damn them, and I'm not going to see them in a nicer way. But revisions for you, it's not about them. You being angry at them doesn't hurt them, it hurts you. It's all you anyway, there is no them. So it's all about empowerment and choosing to see something different because it satisfies you and you're doing it for you. So if you want to say, actually, I'm being selfish when I revise, but selfish in a good way, I'm going to do that because that's important. So, but anyway, yeah, I avoided revision for a long time, and I had done all these other things, and I had done them consistently or a lot, obsessively, I guess, for a little bit. And then it shifted, right? Then I wasn't as obsessive. Then I was just writing a little bit here and there every so often, doing a little more affirmations. But also when things would manifest undesirably, then I would, again, like, oh, I need to do more. I need to do more. I was definitely in that for a long time. So there's nothing wrong with any of that. But ultimately, now that I'm on the other end of it, I realize that a steady, consistent practice is much healthier for your mental state and much more productive because you will generate long-term results that actually last if you go about it in more of a frequent and consistent manner rather than this whole like a binge kind of method, right? Like, oh, I'm going to do so much. That might create change, but it's not sustainable and it's not going to stay that way. And usually with that mentality, you do so much and then you just don't do anything for a while. And then you do so much again because, oh my gosh, I gotta change this and that. So we want consistency over time, okay? And so, yeah, that's what I want you guys to really practice is like a healthy practice that's kind of holistic, right? You're practicing all the things. Oh, I wanted to talk about the visualization aspect too. I didn't think I could for many years because I wasn't practiced in it. And so the first time I tried to visualize, I felt incredibly overwhelmed. I was like, my scene, without the specific details, was it took place in like a dining room or a kitchen with a window and a conversation between me and my SP. However, my overthinking brain went in there and I was like, oh, like what kind of table? Oh, where's the window? Are there flat? Like what? Oh, and now I'm like a fucking interior designer, like trying to create what this whole thing looks like. And it just felt very overwhelming. And even the conversation, do I like that? Do I want him to say this instead? What? And it just was like, no, put it away. I couldn't do it. So then I was like, I can't visualize. Visualization isn't for me. I don't need it, which I didn't. It was fine. But it's not that it wasn't for me, it's that I wasn't practiced in it because I probably hadn't had a spontaneous or like, I don't know, healthy, enjoyable visualization since I was a very, very, very small child. And my childhood, I think I wasn't visualizing in a healthy way probably from about 3 or 4 on. So I don't know, but whatever. But the point is I just wasn't practiced in it because I hadn't been doing it and I hadn't been, it's just like anything else. Like you're the controller of your brain. There is no thing you can't do with your brain. It just takes you, first of all, saying, I can do it, and then trying and not giving up if the first time it doesn't work, right? Now I'm really good at visualization because I practiced and I started to actually just walk myself through it. Oh, you're seeing this, you're hearing this, you're hearing this. That's what it looked like at first. Not at first, but when I revisited it years later, it's, I was like basically narrating what my visualization was until I started to actually see parts of it and hear parts of it and smell parts of it. Like that's, but it was like and it didn't take long. It was just a few nights, really. Just a few sessions of practicing where I was able to now, oh, okay, I'm actually seeing this thing. I'm hearing it. I'm feeling it. I get it now. And like the smile was showing up on my face, right? Whereas at first, yeah. Anyway, so there's nothing that you can't do with your mind. There may be things you're out of practice of, but ultimately it is your mind. And ultimately you are the decider of what you can or can't do with it. And so you just got to start saying, I can visualize. I can revise this situation. I can have a healthy mental diet. I can get into a practice where I'm, holistically supporting myself and creating a better reality for myself. Okay? So, I know my video kind of went off from the topic, but I think it's good because you all needed to hear all that. I needed to say all that. All right. I love you guys. Happy manifesting. I'll see you next video.